This is a Gen 3 KLR 650 from Kawasaki. After 12 months and 5,000 kilometers, do I still like it and should you consider buying one? Let's find out. Hi, welcome to Adventure Bikes Australia. My name is Ben and I'm not an expert at motorcycle riding or motorcycle mechanics in any way whatsoever. Let's kick things off with a review of the KLR's on-road and off-road performance before we move on to talk about the general strengths and weaknesses of the bike. I have only one negative comment about the KLR's on-road performance, and that's to do with the overtaking power. It's just too much. I need to be able to safely and responsibly overtake a semi-trailer, not go screaming past it on one wheel, leaving a strip of rubber on the bitumen with a simple twist of the throttle. I'm sorry, I can't even say that with a straight face. The problem with overtaking power is that there simply isn't any. Actually, that's not quite true. There is overtaking power, there's just not a lot, and you have to carefully plan your overtaking. You need big windows and preferably a dedicated overtaking lane. This is not the bike for zipping out and around traffic at a moment's notice. The KLR will maintain motorway speed limit all day without complaint. There just isn't much room to move above that. It will do almost 50% more than the motorway speed limit, so I've been told, but it just takes a long time to get there. The only other issue I have with the bike is comparatively minor and doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes at highway speeds, the bike can feel like it's being led around by the front. That is, you feel like you're wrestling the handlebars a little bit to make it go in a straight line. This tends to be on windy days and I haven't found it to happen every time, so I can't pin down exactly what's causing it. Some think it's the giant front fender acting like a sail. Others think it comes down to tyre choice. Others still think it's to do with the twist and flex of the front forks. I'm undecided as yet, but have recently put on a fork brace and hope that will solve the problem. I'll report back after another couple of rides. Moving on to the positives of the KLR's on-road performance, while it might lack in kilowatts with only 28.5 kilowatts, it has plenty of torque, 51 Newton meters, which makes it pretty good in traffic. While you're not going to be drag racing other bikes from the lights, scooters are okay and showing them up is mandatory at all times. It does have enough to get you out in front of all the cage drivers. The torque is also going to keep you going when you reach uphill sections and can be fun in the twisties. Speaking of twisties, the KLR is surprisingly fun. It's no sport bike, so please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's better than you think it is. Generally speaking, having a 21-inch front wheel is great for off-roading, but sacrifices some on-road manners. Despite this, I've had great fun on this bike in the twisties. While I'm not a huge fan of the factory tyres, they are quite fun for on-road riding, and I was quite confident on them in the corners. Once they're done, your tyre selections will have a lot to do with the handling of the bike. I've gone with quite aggressive knobbies, which means I've sacrificed some on-road handling, but massively increased the off-road handling. With regard to the brakes, they're fine for sensible riding. They're not going to stop you from 150 kilometers an hour to 0 in 5 meters, but you're on a KLR. It's not like you're going to be going that fast anyway. A big part of adventure bike riding is long highway miles to get to those adventurous spots. Kawasaki has taken measures to make the Gen 3 better than the other generations and better than a lot of other bikes at this price point. Firstly, there's the seat. The seat is wide, long and flat. This means that you always feel supported when you're sitting on it and you have plenty of space to move backwards and forwards on the seat as you start to feel fatigued or sore. This is a huge plus over some of the other bikes out there with the stepped seats. The wide rear seat is also great for pillions, of course, and if you're not carrying a passenger, it's great for mounting a swag or similar, with the factory pillion grab rails making great tie-down spots. One complaint over the KLR over the last 30-odd years of production is the vibration. Now, it's a big capacity single, so what do you want? But even so, Kawasaki's taken measures to ensure your teeth stay in your gums. They've added rubber mounts for the seat, handlebars and the foot pegs, and the foot pegs themselves are rubber. The latter, of course, can cause other problems such as slippage in water or mud, but I haven't found that to be too much of a problem. Now, the negatives regarding on-road comfort are minor gripes at best. Despite the handlebars having rubber mounts, the mirrors still suffer from a lot of vibrations at particular RPM points. It doesn't really affect comfort. Perhaps that's more of a peace of mind issue. You can still see that there's cars or trucks behind you, but you won't be able to read their number plates. And of course, there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all when it comes to motorcycles. Now, I'm 183 centimeters tall, or 6 foot flat in freedom units, and I feel like a lower foot peg and a higher handlebar would be perfect, but that's easily fixable in the aftermarket for not too much money and will be a different situation for every rider. Off-roading is where this bike really comes into its own. The torque is delivered from low in the rev range and is very predictable and linear. This means that on a KLR, you're going to be able to chug up and down and through just about anything. I mean, it'll lug through the bush all day and pull from any gear. It reminds me a lot of when I'm forward driving in my truck in that regard. There's enough horsepower that you can move along gravel roads at a brisk pace, in fact, brisker than I'm often comfortable doing. The brakes work well enough, with one caveat that I'll discuss later. Handling-wise, it has enough ground clearance and good suspension travel, allowing you to traverse more difficult terrain than just a gravel road. I've taken mine on some pretty gnarly twin and single track, and the bike behaved itself quite well. You will, however, quickly find the limitations of this bike if you start to move along at more than a gentlemanly pace. For me, I found the limit to the suspension first. You don't have to push it too hard before you start to bottom out. You'll hear the skid plate hitting the ground and the suspension reach the bump stop. While the rear suspension does have some ability to change the settings to suit you and your riding style, the front suspension does not. So basically, you get what you get. If you want to go wheeling over logs and rivers, you're going to have to be a much better rider than me. While I find it relatively easy to take the weight off the front end to float over obstacles, actually getting that wheel off the ground is very hard. There are better riders out there than me who can do it, so it's not impossible. Regarding the comfort of the KLR off-road, there isn't much to be said that hasn't already been said in this video when discussing the on-road comfort. The biggest factor influencing the off-road comfort of the KLR is the 21-inch front wheel. It makes it much easier getting over obstacles and makes imperfections in the surfaces feel smoother than they would on a bike with a 19-inch front wheel. The only thing that really affects the comfort of the rider off-road is the sheer size of this bike, and this is probably more to do with peace of mind than actual physical comfort. This is a big bike. The standard model, which I have, is 210 kilos or 462 pounds in freedom units before you start modding it with crash bars and whatnot. It's quite tall and the handlebars are quite wide. While this makes it great on the road, it can be a compromise off the road. If you try and take this bike on some tight single track, it becomes a handful pretty quickly, leaving the rider really tired and sore at the end of the day. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we say that everything is a strength and everything is a weakness, and the KLR is the very definition of this. I've already discussed the power figures that this bike makes, so I won't get into that again, but I will discuss the weight. As already discussed, this bike is 210 kilos minimum, which affects several factors. First, it of course affects the power to weight ratio. On paper, you might look at this and see that the output figures are more than, say, a Yamaha XT250. However, the XT250 is significantly lighter, so has a better power to weight ratio, meaning it's going to feel faster. So the weight has a direct effect on the feel of the power of the KLR. But that's not all. The weight also affects the handling off-road. Once things start to get more technical than a gravel road, you do become acutely aware of the weight of the KLR. The tighter the tracks get, the more unwieldy the KLR becomes, and controlling the bike at low speeds on technical terrain can be quite taxing. And once she goes down, she's down. Like you probably, I'm turning 45 and have several old injuries from a misspent youth, and I find it difficult to lift up the KLR once she's down. On nice flat terrain like a grassy paddock, it's fine, but on a steep downhill when the surface is covered in marble-sized stones, it's nearly impossible to pick up on my own. The second weakness of this bike is the old technology that it uses, like really old. The motor is a huge lumpy single that Kawasaki has had to rubber mount the crap out of to make it appeal to more mature adventure riders like us. There are more modern singles out there that are not nearly as vibey as this motor. Next, in an age where cars come with as many as 10 gears and very few motorcycles have less than 6, the KLR comes with 5. 6-speed gearboxes have been around since the 80s, since before the KLR was created. Surely by now we could have had a 6th gear added to the KLR. The factory suspension is the next weakness to discuss. The front are non-adjustable conventional forks, and the rear is Kawasaki's Unitrack system that it's been using since forever. There have been minor adjustments over the years to firm up the front end, but if you're looking at buying a KLR and want to use it for more than a putt-around bike, a suspension upgrade should be first on your list. And what little technology it does have is laughable. There are no ride modes. There is no cruise control. There is no traction control. You can't even turn off the ABS. The KLX 300 has switchable ABS. Why couldn't we have had that? The Gen 3 is also the first KLR to receive EFI. In 2022, the Holden Commodore got EFI in 1984. I've found with my KLR that even though it has EFI, I still need to give it a minute or two to warm up like a carburetted bike. If I don't, the bike falters when I try to drive off like it's running out of fuel. And yes, I've checked my VIN number and no, I'm not in the fuel pump recall. And other than that, that's it for technology. Oh wait, it does have an LED headlight. Then there are the KLR haters who will carry on about the doohickey and the thermobob. Kawasaki's made several revisions of the doohickey over the life cycle of the KLR, and the result is that now the failure rate is incredibly low. Not impossibly low, but incredibly low. Similarly, Kawasaki's made revisions to both pistons and rings in response to the thermobob issue. There are still some folks out there with Gen 3 bikes that had doohickey wear and claim their bikes use a lot of oil. However, I haven't found anyone having a catastrophic failure on the Gen 3s. Now, I will inspect the doohickey when I open the bike for something else, and with regard to the thermobob, I live on the Gold Coast and my research has said that the thermobob issue is really only for cold areas. Now, reminder, I'm not a mechanic, I just watch a lot of YouTube videos. But as I said before, in Jiu-Jitsu, everything is a strength and everything is a weakness, and the KLR is the ultimate embodiment of that. Before I move on to talk about the strengths, I'm going to address each of the weaknesses I just discussed before. Let's kick things off with the power. There is a perceived lack of power when considering the KLR, especially if looking at it against a T7 for example. However, the power is exactly the right amount for learners, returning riders, and the more gentlemanly riders out there. It has the right amount of power to maintain the motorway speed limit all day. It has the right amount of torque to get you up, over, around, and through just about anything. The power and the torque are both delivered in a linear fashion, meaning you're always able to predict exactly what's going to happen when you twist the throttle. And the money you save on speeding fines and reckless driving offences you can spend on other things like more adventure trips. The weight is also a common complaint about the KLR. Yes, it does have negative side effects as discussed earlier, but the weight also makes the KLR great on the tarred sections of your ride. Between your house and the trails, the KLR feels well planted on the road. You don't feel like you're going to be sucked under a semi-trailer at any moment like you do on lighter bikes. Its size and weight make it more comfortable and more comforting on the highway, and as a bonus, it's harder to steal. The lack of technology means the KLR is as simple as a hammer and can be worked on by any mechanic anywhere in the world. I often joke with people that when buying the KLR, I wanted a bike that if it stopped, I could just hit it with a rock until it started again. In short, there's less stuff that can go wrong on a KLR, and if something does go wrong, it's easily fixed without much drama. But now let's talk about the straight up strengths of the KLR 650. Right now, a brand new Gen 3 base model is going to cost you 11,141 Aussie dollars in Queensland. This makes it a realistic purchase for a lot of riders. Even if you touched nothing on this bike, you could buy it today and then ride it around the world tomorrow. Seriously, this bike is ready to go right out of the box. It has enough ground clearance, it has enough suspension travel, it has enough power and torque, it has a massive fuel tank and a large rack on the back for your luggage. There are incredibly few bikes out there at this price point that can offer you that, and there are many more expensive bikes out there that can't either. In fact, I know a guy who bought his Gen 3 in Brisbane and rode it completely stock, including the tyres, all the way to the very top of Cape York. He rode it within its design parameters and he had absolutely no problems with it. An extension to this point is the ongoing cost of ownership. A low compression motor means low servicing and low maintenance costs. The KLR has a 12,000 kilometre service interval. Before I bought this bike, I was considering a KLX 450. When I researched the service needs, I found that the KLX had a 1,000 kilometre service interval and a 1,500 kilometre ring and piston interval. To put that into perspective, if I wanted to take a KLX 450 up the Cape, I'd have to service it once on the way up and once again on the way down, and once I did get to the tip, I'd have to do the rings and pistons. Ridiculous. As such, the ongoing service and maintenance costs of the KLR are some of the lowest out there. The second thing to talk about is the reliability. The KLR has a reputation for being unkillable. Sure, you'll hear stories of doohickeys and thermobobs, but the failure rate is so low, Kawasaki has not done a single recall on them in more than 30 years of production. In the 12 months and 5,000 kilometres I've had my KLR, I've not had one single problem. Nothing is broken, nothing has failed, and this bike has never left me high and dry wondering how I'd get home. In fact, on my first adventure ride out after buying it, dead standard, I ended up doubling a Triumph Tiger rider the 2.5 hours home after his radiator failed in the middle of nowhere. And you know what? With two large middle-aged men on board, the KLR had no problem on the gravel roads, twisty bitumen or motorway. With scheduled maintenance, it's common for a KLR to reach 80,000 kilometres or more without any dramas at all. This bike will not leave you stranded on the side of the road with thousands of dollars in bills and a 6-month wait on parts, unlike another motorcycle out there that has a 3-letter name starting with K. And speaking of parts, that brings me to the third point. The parts that you will need are cheap. This is a Japanese brand that's been in production for 30 odd years. Parts are plentiful and cheap, and so is the aftermarket. We're talking a 30+ year run on the KLR. There's nothing you can't get for this bike in the aftermarket. With so many of them on the road, they are definitely affordable. It's best if you think of this bike as a blank slate. You can buy it and then build it up into anything you want it to be. Fourthly, this bike could be the one bike that you need for everything. If you own a KLR, you don't need to have another bike or two because the KLR can do it all. You can run it up the motorway all day long, you can commute in traffic, you can hit gravel roads, you can even do some twin track and some single track. Now, it's not the greatest bike at all of those things, but it's good enough at all of them. Now, I challenge you to show me another bike that's as good as this at all of those things at this price point. The last thing I want to mention is the KLR community. You hear about bikes that have a cult following. Well, those bikes wish they had the following that the KLR has. We're talking about literally millions of KLR owners, past and present out there, who have first-hand experience with the KLR and are happy to share what they've learnt with you. So if you're looking for a passionate community to engage with about your bike, you won't find a bigger, happier and more helpful community than the KLR community. Now, before I give you my final opinion on the KLR, do you own a KLR? How do you like it? Let me know in the comments below. The KLR is the very definition of the word enough. If you have a picture dictionary, go inside, look up the word enough, and I'll bet you there's a picture of a KLR in there. It's got enough kilowatts to have you doing motorway speeds all day long. It's got enough torque to get you up, over and through just about anything. It's comfortable enough that you can ride it for 8 hours a day. It's got enough ground clearance and suspension to get you just about anywhere you want to go. It handles well enough. It stops well enough. And it comes at a price point and cost of ownership that just cannot be beaten. So if you're looking for a bike that will take you anywhere and bring you home again, that you'll make lifelong memories with, and will not burn a hole in your pocket, then the KLR is for you. If you're the kind of rider that likes to keep throwing money at your bike, move along because this KLR is staying right here.